We are back. What is up, everybody? As promised, we are not going to write any code in this video. So the last video, we went through our analytics, our logging, and we saw that tons of stuff was logging to the console. We figured out a couple bugs in our app, which I apologize again that were happening. But if you remember when we created that dev build, in addition to the console service, we had our Firebase, Mixpanel, and Crashlytics all set up. Primarily, Mixpanel is what I'm looking at, because in this video, we're going to go into Mixpanel and actually observe and analyze a lot of our analytics. I'm going to show you guys quickly how we can build some charts to actually observe all of these analytics, because these are not just for us to send and debug, but really so that us and our team can make business decisions. And for sure, I could do an entire course just on analyzing the analytics. For sure, there are people at companies that their entire job is analyzing analytics. But what we're going to do is just a high level approach to what are some of the big top level charts that we should be looking at when we build out our app. So I'm going to get started and jump back into Mixpanel. So we set up our Mixpanel a couple of videos back. And if we go into our users section now, we should see all of the users in our app. Now, obviously, we only have one user, which is just me, but we did a lot of deleting accounts and creating new accounts. And every time we created a new account, we got a new user ID, which we can see here. Our app doesn't have a username. That's why these say no value, but that is actually correct. So here was our fake name we did for one iteration. So this is what it would look like if you actually got the name from the user's authentication. For this implementation of this app, we actually don't need the user's name. So no value is correct. Sometimes the user provides email, which if you sign in with Apple, you should get the email back. But we also have anonymous users, so their email is obviously undefined. We can see their distinct ID here, and we can even customize the columns on this chart with the edit columns here. But the big thing we're looking at is actually, these are all the user profiles. So in a real app, these would all be different users. And if we go in and we click on one of these, we can see the user's email, we can see their distinct ID. This is really important. This should match the ID that is in Firebase. So if you open up Firebase and you go into the authentication console, you could paste their ID in and you would be able to see it. Here we have a feed of all the events that happen to a user. So now I can very quickly come in here and I can go to any point and see exactly what the user is doing. So here we see explore, disappear, profile view, settings press. So they clicked into the settings. Then they went into and they started deleting their account. That's probably a bad example, but we'll be able to see everything here in terms of if they're sending chat messages, if they are creating avatars and things like that. I'll also note that we added a couple methods to add user properties. So now we can see for this user profile properties, we can see all this stuff that we've logged here. So this is just going to now come out of the box every time a user account gets created. So we can see here, some of this stuff that is not prefixed is coming from Mixpanel itself. So Mixpanel is already logging the app release and the iOS version and some good stuff. A lot of this is really important that we actually want. Then we can see our data coming from the user authentication. So this one is anonymous, is false. We can see the last sign in date. We also get stuff from our user model that we're also logging here. So we can see did complete onboarding, user is not anonymous, the profile color. And then we also get all of our utility methods here. So again, a lot of these are not very relevant. Battery level is irrelevant, but we do have some important ones such as is dev user. So now when I go and I make my charts, I can filter on the dev users, or better yet, the not dev users, so that we know which ones are actually coming from production and not our dev environment. So this is what a user profile looks like. If you want to look for certain events, you come up here and you can click hide all events. So we'll select them all and the ones that we're looking for. So we'll look for maybe this user deleted their account. So let's do delete account, type in delete here, and then unselect all the ones that are deleting. So we'll hide all of the events except for these ones. And so now we can get a filtered view of all of our analytics here. We can see that this person did try to delete their account a bunch of times. Obviously there were some errors here, but that's beside the point. Now, in addition to the actual user profiles, up here we can filter if we wanted to look for certain users, maybe by geography or something like that. In addition to looking at the user profiles, we can also just see all of the events coming through. So I'm only logged into this, but here you would see all your different users as they're triggering events. And this updates Not in real time, but if you refresh the page, it will update. So we can just see at a high level all of the events that are triggering in our app. This is a major advantage from Google Firebase, from Firebase Analytics, because Firebase does not have user profiles like this. So it's much harder to actually dive into a specific user's behavior. I think part of that has to do with privacy and Google doesn't want to touch it. But for our purposes, something like this is just so incredibly helpful when you try to debug and really look at what the user is actually doing. Now, using user profiles is important if you're trying to look at a specific user, but most of the time we really want to just focus on charts. So we actually can create dashboards. So Mixpanel creates a starter board for you. So if you've never used Mixpanel before and you click in here, you can see some basic information. Active users, we can also see active users by city. So New York is where I live right now. And then retention, this is going to be a hard one to see until you have a bunch of users. But a retention curve, if we just Google retention curve, it generally will look something like this. You have 100% of your users on day 0 when they install it. 27% came back on day 1, 19% on day 2, 17% came back on day 3. This is your typical retention curve, and it's one of the most important metrics that you're going to watch as you build and iterate on your app. So that's what this chart will turn into after we get more data. And then eventually you'll start segmenting your users, maybe, for example, in this chart, maybe by the date that they installed the app. I think that's maybe what this one is doing. So each of these are probably a different app build, and then you have different retention curves. So you can see that as you make changes, okay, now in this orange curve here, probably made some good changes and users are going to come back more often and improve your app's retention. These are cool, but they're not super unique to our app. So let's go ahead and build our own dashboard with a couple of our own analytics. I'll come back to the boards. Let's click and create a new board. Let's just call it core dashboard. If you use this in production, you'll probably end up having a bunch of dashboards. Maybe you have a dashboard for onboarding, a dashboard for the chat screen, a dashboard for user retention, a dashboard for your A/B tests. We're on the free version of Mixpanel, so they're going to limit us to one board and only a couple charts. So we're just going to put a couple things in our core dashboard for now. The cool thing about analytics is that you can always add the charts later. So the important thing is getting the analytics in the app. And then because the analytics are already triggering, Mixpanel is recording them. So I can go and create boards a month after the analytics actually happened. The important thing is getting the analytics in your core build. And then later we can always build our dashboards. Let's go ahead and add a board. And we're going to use a funnels report. This is generally probably the most common board. And funnels help you analyze conversion drop-off. So basically it's a bunch of steps that the user is going to take. And you can then analyze if the user is making it through all of those steps. So one really big flow in our app is onboarding, and that's probably the most important funnel for most people. So we know that when users enter our app, they're going to go to the welcome view. So we should have a welcome appear. The second step, those users would then go to the onboarding appear, onboarding intro view. Then they would go to the onboarding color view. Then they would go to the onboarding completed view. And then we should have some analytics for onboarding completed. Let's do finish start. And then onboarding completed finish success. And then after that, they should get into the app and actually maybe go to the explore view appear. So now if I look at my chart here, I can see, all right, so of 100% of the users that opened my app and installed it, only 33% of them got into went through onboarding. Now our data is going to be a little corrupt here because we did a lot of signing in, we did fake accounts, but this is roughly what it's going to look. What you'll find is a lot of users download your app, install it, and never even click open to create an account. Now we did a lot of caveats here, so the data looks a little bad, but this is the same chart that you would do in actual production. You probably would want to come down here and filter on dev user. So we have our utility is dev user, and we can go and do false. And this would be all of our production users. So this would be users using the prod app, not the dev app. Obviously, we didn't add any data here. So let's put this to true for our purposes, but that's an easy way to filter out our dev environment. So now we can see of the 5 users, 40%, 2 went through onboarding. And then we can see these steps. So of the ones that went into the first screen, 100% got to the second screen. So that means there's no drop off between the first and the second screen. You'll find that if you ask users questions in onboarding, sometimes there will be drop off. Sometimes people will say, you know what, I don't like this question, I don't like this app, and they'll just close the app. So we're really looking for big drop offs here. Ideally, there is no drop off. So here we can see users get all the way through to the onboarding completed, finish, start, finish, success, and then finish, explore, appear. And so it's good that we have these analytics for start and success, because if the users were maybe clicking the finish button, and then for some reason there was a bug and the profile wasn't saving, you'd see a big drop off here between the start and the success. And we would know immediately, all right, well, lots of users are getting stuck right here on this screen. We should probably go and debug that code. We also would get the errors in our Crashlytics console, so we should be able to see it at that high level as well. Lastly, we have the Explore view appeared. So this, even though this is not technically a UI test, this will help us understand that users who do finish are then entered into the tab bar. You could imagine there's another bug in our app where users click finish, it succeeds, but then it never actually moves them into the tab bar. And so Explore view never appears. So if there's a huge drop off there, you would know exactly where that bug is as well. Right now, our conversion criteria is within 7 days. So the user has 7 days to get from the beginning to the end of this flow. But oftentimes we really want to change the conversion data. So maybe this flow should take the user, it takes them maybe 5 minutes, but let's give them maybe 1 hour to get through this flow. Let's apply it. Now our data is the exact same, but in production, you'll find differences when you do things like this. Let's call this dashboard the onboarding funnel and click save. This is just warning us that we only have 5 reports available in our free version of Mixpanel. So we're only going to create 5, but in production, I would pay for Mixpanel and I would have a ton of reports. We saved it. And now in our core dashboard, we have our onboarding funnel that our team can now come in and check on this every day and make sure everything is working. To show a different type of chart, let's go into when users come into our chat and actually send a message. In our code, we have a chat view and we have the events. So we have a bunch of data for send message start, sent, response sent. So send message sent, we pass in an avatar. So let's get a board where we can figure out what are the most popular chats, the user interacting with a specific avatar. So what are the best avatars in our app? And maybe that will help us make business decisions. Let's create another board here. And this one we'll try an insights report. And insights is just a typical graph. So here we're going to call the send message. And we should have our send message sent. We'll use that one. So again, this chart is a little weird because we don't have much data, but this would tell you how many users each day have sent a message. So this is unique per user. So if the same user sent 10 messages, they appear here as 1. So we can see this is only 4 users. Alternatively, we could change this to total events. So if one user sent 5 events, it would now show 5 times here. So I want to do total events for this. And then this, you would see a line graph over the days. So you can see that over time, if people are sending more events or less events of this chart. Now, what I actually want to do is break this down by the avatar. And we have the avatar ID. We added the avatar name. Let's do avatar name because it's a little bit more human readable. So we can see here that Joseph is our most popular avatar, then Emily, and then Olivia. And when we're doing these breakdowns, sometimes it's even better to move this to like a pie chart. So we can see real quick, Joseph is clearly the most popular avatar. Another way to break this down might be by avatar character option. So we can see here that, all right, so the most popular ones are the men, then the women, and maybe we add some more so we get aliens and stuff like that. We could also break it down to character location. We can see, all right, our most popular locations are the mall and the city. And then maybe in a future version of our app, we put the mall first in the list and we remove desert because it's not popular. Now, I would save all of these as different charts and put a dashboard for like character chat message data. But we're going to be limited to 5 charts. So let's just save this one as the avatar name. And we'll call this the most chatted with avatars. We'll do a W here. Most chatted with avatars. Save. Cool. So now we get in our dashboard, we can see at a high level this as well. We're going to do maybe 2 more quick examples here. Again, I could make an entire course just on the Mixpanel analytics, but we don't have that much time. So let's do maybe 1 or 2 more quick funnels. So we could do a funnel for explore, appear, and then click. So we can see what percentage of people actually click on this cell, actually click and get into the chat screen. We could do a funnel for what percentage of people click into here and then click into an actual chat. But I want to actually do the profile create avatar. I think this is a good funnel and probably one of the places that I would like to iterate on if I was going to build this app. This screen is cool, but there's a lot of stuff going on here, and maybe this is a difficult place where users are going to get stuck. Let's create another funnel. And so we're going to do a funnel like this one. Let's create content and let's do a funnels report. I'm going to challenge you guys to try to get this funnel together. We're going to have the create avatar screen appear, the generate image, and then the save. If I go back to my create avatar view, I will see all of these analytics here. So you guys should be able to now create this without me. Go ahead and try it. If not, I'm going to jump in. So the first we're going to do is the appear. So we'll do create avatar appear. Next, we're going to do create avatar generate image start, create avatar generate image success. And then we have save avatar start and success. Save avatar start, save avatar success. All right. Let's do this within maybe 1 hour. Let's filter on our dev users as false. Well, let's put it for true because obviously we are dev users. And now we can see, let's title this our create avatar funnel. Let's save it. And now we can see really quickly of the users that open up the create avatar screen, only 60% of them actually save an image. So we got 40% fall off between opening the screen, typing the name, and then clicking generate image. So maybe we should do something in here to convince the user to actually add in their name. Maybe we change this screen so that the first screen is just the name, and then the attributes only appear after the name is added. I don't know, but we need to figure out why this drop off is happening. Now you got to keep in mind in your app that drop off is normal. It's not always a bad thing that there is drop off. You should expect there to be drop off. But the question is how much drop off and can you improve the drop off? And the biggest thing is definitely making sure that drop off is not increasing. So as you iterate and make changes to your product, you want to make sure that each of these flows are getting better and not worse. So for example, maybe we break down by the user creation version. Remember when we created our user models, we added a creation version. So 100% of these users are created on version 1.0. But I would have here, if I created another version 2.0, I would see 2 bars next to each other here and 2 bars next to each other here. If I Google like Mixpanel charts, this is generally how it would look, where each of these would be a different install version. So we have these beautiful colors here, and we can see that like this version dropped off less than this version versus this version and then this version. So if I looked at this funnel at a high level, I can see that this red version here is probably better than this purple version here because there's less drop off. So we can't see that in our code right now because we only have user 1.0, but now we could break this down. And after we iterate and make changes, we can then start to see version 1.0 had a 60% conversion, version 2.0 had a 40% conversion. All right, so the changes made it worse. That will help us make business decisions. We also can't see here the significance Maybe I can see it in that chart that we just pulled up here. Yeah, so you can see here a little bit the significance, and there's little decimal points here. This determines whether or not it is statistically significant result. So Mixpanel has internal logic that basically if enough people go through the funnel, it will tell you if this is statistically significant, so that you can definitely make a confirmed decision. You can imagine if you only have 5 people in your app, it's not going to be enough to actually make a decision, because 5 people is too small of a population to actually understand how the general population is going to behave. So Mixpanel has this really convenient number of people coming through it and the statistical significance that this conversion rate is going to be 60%. So once this turns green, it gets to like 90, 99%, then it's time to actually make the business decision. Let's go ahead and click save. One more report is done. Let's go to our dashboard. Maybe I'll move this to the side so it's a little easier to read. My avatar funnel. All right. And the last board we're going to do just one more type of board. Let's go ahead and click another insights board here. And this time we're going to look for just all events. So any event per user that happened today only. Let's filter on today. And let's change this to a bar column. You guys can play around with all these other ones, but a bar chart. And let's do a breakdown here by, and now we're not going to have that much data, but we can break it down by maybe by city. So we can see the different users from different geographic locations. Maybe we want to do country. We also could break this down maybe by anonymous users. So how many of our users in our app are anonymous? We could break this down by maybe their profile colors. Now, the profile color is probably not correlated to how many users are coming back. You could imagine that if this value was searching for something a little bit more hefty, such as the install version, or maybe there was an A/B test and it was users in the test versus users not in the test. How many people in this shard are using my app today? So I can see here that 2 people with this profile color use my app today. And maybe that will give us an insight of, maybe if you had an onboarding flow where you had some questions about what do you like to do? What do you like to do on the weekend? Do you like to go out with your friends? Do you like to stay in and watch movies? And then you could filter here and on those results, and you could see, okay, well, all the people that said they like to go out are not using my app on Saturdays. All the people that said they like to stay in and watch movies are all using my app on Saturday. And so you can then start to make business decisions here as well. The profile color hex is not a great result, but we don't have much else to really chart out right now. So like city probably is a big one that we could do. See which cities are the most popular, especially if your app was geographic. So it's hard to make some of these charts. Let's title this active users today by profile color and save it. And that's going to be our 4th chart. Let's jump back to our core dashboard, and I will just move this up here. And now we can get this really cool dashboard. Maybe we move our avatar funnel up here. And so we can start seeing at a high level all the stuff that is happening in our app. And we can come in here week after week and filter these by the new versions, make sure that our funnels are getting better and not getting worse. We're going to do some more of these after we add A/B tests and purchases into our app. You could imagine that the users in certain A/B test shards behave slightly different, maybe better or worse. You could imagine users that are premium maybe behave slightly different, better or worse. And we're going to want to do all of those breakdowns in all of these charts and more. But that's it for this video. It's just an introduction to actually how we can create the Mixpanel analytics. And I hope this now starts to really show you guys how important it was to add all the analytics in the last couple of videos. Because now that we have that set up, we can come in here asynchronously and really set up tons of different ways to look at the data and the users using our charts. Getting the analytics in your app is the most important because you can always set these charts up later. You can set this up a week, a month, a year after it has happened. And you can also just have your product manager do this side of the app, right? So usually the engineer doesn't have to go and create the charts themselves. If you're a startup Obviously, you got to do this yourself as well. But in a larger company, your product manager team would then go and build out all these funnels. Meanwhile, your engineer team would just focus on triggering the analytics. We did not do a chart here on failure events. So you could imagine that you created a funnel for like start and then fail. So we could see the drop off when there's a fail. But that's basically going to be the inverse of the success. So on some of these, we had like create avatar, gen image success, start and success. So this is 100%. But if there was drop off here, then that would be, the failure would be the exact opposite of that. So tracking the success is essentially tracking the failure at the same time. The last thing I will note is that if we do switch back into Firebase and we go to our Crashlytics and we filter for the non-fatal crashes, we can actually start to see a lot of our fails coming through here. Now we should remember that these failures are not actually crashes. So the event delta is no longer in our code. So let's go ahead and just close that one. Bug finished, bug squashed. But we can see here that some of these other ones have failed. Now, obviously this is mostly us and I'm not really concerned about any of these, but you can watch this at a high level. Instead of actually creating Mixpanel charts, you can just watch these at a high level. So you could actually come into some of these, like the Apple auth fail. This one will probably happen a lot because there's a lot of users who try to log in with Apple and then fails for like weird reasons. But you can come in here and then you could even see in the keys, we're logging that error description. Remember the error.event parameters? So we can see here the actual error that came through. Now this error is not very explanatory, but if we added better error reporting, we would be able to see this here. And then we can click this arrow and go through all of our different non-fatal crashes. And we can see if it's the same error coming through, if it's different errors, and that should be able to help us debug. We also have additional information here, which is awesome. And now we can see our breadcrumbs, all of the things that happened right before this non-fatal triggered, which is awesome. We get our data, so we can see the user ID here. So I'm going to copy this user ID. And we're not using the rollouts yet, but if I come back to the dashboard, we can also come here and search by user ID. So if a user says I'm crashing and we get their user ID, we can now see, okay, well, this user has all these crashes and we should be able to figure out exactly what's going on in their app. Between the Crashlytics dashboard here and the Mixpanel dashboards and the actual console logs that we are now getting, you should be a debugging expert. We have so much data to now go in and debug basically anything that is happening in our app. I think setting this up the first time as a junior dev who's never built an app before, this all seems crazy and overkill. And I never would have thought of doing any of this the first time I built an app. But after you do this once or twice in your apps, it makes you sleep so much better at night because now we have complete insight into everything that is happening in our app. Cool. We looked at the Firebase Crashlytics console. We spent a bunch of time in our Mixpanel console, and now it's time to get back into our code base. Let's wrap up the video there. We did not write any code as promised, and I will see you all in the next video.